Hello and indeed welcome to another Whiskey Review with me, the Whiskey Novice. Thank you for joining me for review number 147, this time part 4 of a series in which I'm looking at some miscellaneous malts. Malts that I have in my cabinet that just didn't fit into other reviews, shall we say, and I just wanted to talk about them. This time we remain in Ireland to Dingle, and down in Kerry there, and the Dingle Batch 6. Dingle, an artisan distillery, started in 2012, their first whiskey out in 2016. Something you maybe find I don't review an awful lot of Irish whiskey, simply because a lot of these new distilleries are still sourcing. Once they start to produce their own stuff, once their own stuff is in bottles, I will start to review more Irish whiskey. But it's just something in me that for now I would prefer to stick to distilleries that are bottling their own juice, should we say, and Dingle are one of them. As I said earlier, just started in 2012, first whiskey out 2016. This, the batch 6, the final batch of their batch series, matured in tawny port casks. And this was actually gifted to me by my sister, and I was quite blown away because I just didn't expect it. Sells for around, you'll still get this, they're still out there currently. Now, remembering that this is, where are we now? I have to think about this. June 2022. So currently this is still out there in places, but it could probably be hard enough to get in some places. So sells for around the 65, I think, to around almost the 80 mark. Non-chill filtered, bottled at 46.5, I believe. Yes, non-chill filtered. Doesn't mention colour, but there's a lovely pinky reddy hue off this. This is, as I mentioned, matured in tawny port casks, and exclusively in tawny port casks. So there's been no initial maturation and then a port finish. This is, yes, it'll be young, but it's still all port cask and their own juice. So this is why I'm so behind Dingle and what they're doing. Let's just get into this, shall we? The port cask in this plays its part, and what it does is, what it brings to the nose for me is rich, full. And one of the very, very first things, one of the very first notes I got in this when I nosed it was strawberry laces. Once again, here I go down that path of naming maybe things that are quite exclusive to the UK or to Ireland or whatever. What are strawberry laces? Where they're like a lace, as in like a shoelace, but strawberry, like a strawberry chew. So if you imagine a strawberry candy or strawberry sweet, something chewy like that. Yes, strawberry laces. Glacé cherries. Honey. And then you get this, there's a dusty, sawdusty thing going on round and abouts or in the background. Sweet mince pie. Stewed apples. Once again, perhaps I'm bringing it a bit too close to home, but Murray mints, which are a buttery mint of a thing, a hard boiled buttery candy, buttery slightly minty candy. Well, they are minty candy, and one that they do actually mention on the label, thick cut marmalade. Yes, I would give them that all day long. There is when they say thick cut marmalade, it's that with, you can see the chunks of orange rind in there. Very, very inviting nose on this. There's no denying that. It draws you in. It's interesting. If you're not, and this is once again, I found quite a few people saying this, that I've offered this to people and they've said, no, I don't like port finish, port maturation. I do. I do. I don't fully Well, I suppose each to their own, because I was going to say there I don't fully understand why they wouldn't, but I suppose each to their own. Everybody has their own tastes. I quite like a port finish or port maturation, and this one works in well. Soft, dark, bittersweet. Arrival. Initially, it's a little sharp and feels like as if it leans toward the bitter end of things. But I know that if you give this time, the sweetness balances out. It's not overly thick. Actually, it's slightly thin on the palate, but as in it just doesn't feel like as if it's coating. But there's enough flavour hanging around to give it that oomph, to give it that grip. All the port notes are there, as in that sweetness is there. You would know easily that this has a maturation of wine or fortified wine, because it's just it's all over it. You would almost know to look at the colour of it. The strawberry laces come back, not just as much as they're there in the nose. It is sweet fruit, grape. Yeah. The marmalade, the honey returns. It's good. The slight chalkiness right at the very back. And it's all sort of rounded off, leading into the finish with a nice gingery heat. That finish is, I'm going to say, sort of, it's not short, it's short to medium. It's not that long a finish. The sweetness does hang around. The gingeriness hangs around. That you would know that there was a wine feel, but it's not, it doesn't go dry very quickly. It doesn't go astringent. It's just a strange finish. It's because I think it's because it's quite short, and as I said before, there's almost a chalkiness, or I was going to say yet again. There's a do you remember candy cigarettes? Anybody older than 30? There's a chalky sweetness right at the very back of it. Not off-putting. It just hangs around and it's quite nice. But it's there. I'm going to add a little bit of water. Just a little bit. I find that a lot of Irish single malts, unless you go into the really high ABV, don't hold up the water very well. They tend to fall apart a bit under, with very little water. They just tend to feel like they split to me or something, and they just don't cope very well. This, I know from doing whenever I did my tasting notes, felt the same. It didn't take very much water for it to drown. It becomes a little brighter. It was already sort of bright. It becomes a little bit brighter. Hints of love hearts. But if you overdo the water in this, I'm going to say overdo it. That was 3 drops of water. If you went much more than that, it just goes a bit wishy-washy and does, as I said, sort of split and just stops working. And tends to lose a lot of its richness, which was part of its appeal. But then pull that water back, give it a little bit, just a little bit, and as I said, you will get brighter notes that, as I said, they're love hearts. It becomes quite sherbety, quite citrusy. Palate takes a bit of that. I mentioned earlier a bitter edge. It's not overly bitter, but it just ramps up the sweetness a bit. There's a sharpness with that sweetness, raspberry maybe, a cranberry actually. Some orange sweetness. That marmalade that I mentioned earlier on is then it'll be it carries right through the palate. Finish remains gingery, remains sort of sweet. Actually, I would say becomes a little longer with the addition of water. Yeah, look, I like this. I've liked this from day one. I think it's a great malt. I think what Dingle are doing, I haven't had that many other offerings from them, but just to have a distillery that you could almost straight away say, yeah, there's good things coming. You know, there's them 10 years old. There's that distillery's 10 years old now. I would expect to see whiskies coming soon in the next few years with good age statements on them. I would like to see that. I would like, and I hope them, I wish for them the best, all the best, because I think they deserve it. As I said, artisan distillery, 3 friends, I believe, family, started this together, and so far going well. And if this is anything to go by, they deserve it. So yes, I would recommend Dingle to you. I would recommend the Batch 6. If you don't like port finishes, if you don't like port maturation, well then no, definitely don't, because this is a good example of one that is, you know that port has been in play there. So then no, but if you can cope with the port finish, port maturation, then this is a good example. So yes, I would recommend it. So then, therefore, where do I head next? If you like this, well, I've had a few, and literally a handful of port maturation, port finish whiskies. But straight away when I thought about this, I thought of a whiskey. And one that I've had around a while, the Iron Port Cask. And it just made me think of this. Now, once again, well, bottled at 50%, the Iron Port Cask. This is a port finish rather than full maturation. But yet again, you just know the port's at play. You know there's something else at play. You know there's been an active, and in this case, port cask here at play. And it's a good, yet again, it's a good example of using port casks to give your whiskey a different feel, and it is a different feel. Of the two of them, I was going to say of the two of them, which would I prefer? It's sort of hard to, because this is full maturation, this is young, this is a finish. I'm not sure of the full maturation on this, but I think it's just ex-bourbon and then probably a year's finish in export. If you want that big peat hit, or that big port hit, I would recommend the Dingle. If you like a port finish, well then they are. So yes, but I would definitely, if that's the sort of feel you like in your whiskey, then I'm going to recommend to you the Iron Port Cask as your port hit, shall we say. So there you go, yeah. I would recommend Dingle to you. Give them a go. It's good stuff. Where Irish single malt goes, it's good stuff. So it's great to see another good player on the field there. There you go. That does that. It's the first, it's not the last Irish that will be in this series. I'd like to thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very, very much to my patrons. If you wish to join that group, the details are in the video description below. Yes, yes, yes. Till the next time, my friends, here's your good health. Cheers. Hey, thanks for watching my video. Please click and subscribe to be notified of further content.